Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is our Michigan State Representative for the District 39, Ryan Berman, with us. Congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here this morning.
What was this election cycle like for you compared to the first time you ran and in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, obviously it's been quite an interesting year, quite an interesting time throughout the past year with the pandemic, being a freshman legislator. Politics, and I think what we've seen overall over the past few years, and since Donald Trump got elected president in 2016, and from then it was just people's, and I'm not going to blame the president for this, but he wasn't the typical politician, right? I think that's one of the reasons he got elected in the first place. He was an outsider. And kind of the story of when we talk about this and now this presidential election, his in 2020, of the stories being out there, is when he first decided to run back in 2015 or whenever it was, a lot of people, myself included, was like, Donald Trump is running for president? That's a joke, right? Is that a publicity stunt? And we saw it dominating the headlines back then of, well, is he really in it? Kind of like, when Kid Rock said he was going to run for Senate, and it ended up, at John James, and like, is Kid Rock really going to run for the Senate? And it happened to be a publicity stunt, a tour, and selling merchandise and making money off of it.
Although I think he would have been elected if he would have actually ran.
Yeah, well, look what happened. Trump ended up getting elected president when people thought it was a publicity stunt. People thought it was a joke. But, his message resonated. Not to mention that, his opponent, Hillary Clinton, had a lot of baggage, if you will, and people were sick of the, politics as usual. I think a lot of people were sick of the PC culture, and Trump spoke and said how it was. And, a lot of people voted for him, I think the first time and even this time, because he wasn't a politician, because it wasn't really about the person, but about his, priorities, his policy, his positions. And you had it when certain things came out of, with locker room talk. Well, we're not voting for him to date our daughters. We're voting for him to clean up the mess in Washington. And, with that, it's something of saying, hey, it got so nasty. The attacks kept coming and coming. He was being attacked from before day one, whether warranted or not. Listen, he doesn't do himself any favors over the past few years. But the negative publicity and the constant negative media attention just really turned a lot of people off. It was just overwhelming, damaging. And you have late night talk shows that literally just turned into the Donald Trump, ripping tour. That's all they did every night, is just made jokes and just ripped on him like it was their mission. And they were focused. And some people say they have, Trump derangement syndrome. People were focused on this, and we see it now of what's going on with this reelection. I knew it was going to be close because you had a lot of people out there that supported him. Look, we have record turnout. We have, it's tight. But I don't want to talk about Trump, but really, that really goes into about how nasty things are and how divided our country is getting. People ask me, why now? Why are you involved?
Yeah, because Ryan, I will say, sorry to interrupt you, but boy, the attack ads against you were pretty fierce. So it seems like it did trickle down into the state of Michigan because we are such a battleground state here. What was it like for you the second time around? Because like you said, here you are, still pretty much new to the political process, still trying to get your feet and learn all of the ins and outs of being an elected leader. You run for re-election, and the political ads against you were pretty fierce. Like, you couldn't turn on the TV without seeing one here in our area. What was that like for you to run for re-election, and did it kind of sour you at all to the process?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it did. It did. I mean, that's what I don't like, the politics of politics, if that makes sense. You know, I got in it because people don't want to experience that. They don't want to be unfairly, negatively attacked, constant barrage of attacks when they're just trying to do the right thing. I got in it to do the right thing, to do good for everybody, to work across that aisle. I mean, all of my bills, bipartisan, working across. I'm like one of the only Republicans that work very well and across the aisle with Democrats. And to see that, and to see colleagues of mine, you know, go out there actively campaigning against me, it's like, how do you like if Tyler is out there actively trying to get you fired, and you just have sitting there working with him? You know, it's an interesting thing, and I think maybe that's kind of what's messed up about our system, and we're expected to go back to Lansing and work together. And I will, absolutely. I mean, hey, listen, they didn't, I won, so, you know, nothing off my back. I mean, but at the end of the day, that constant barrage, it's disheartening. And when I would talk to my colleagues, and they're like, hey, Berman, we like you, but it's politics. We need your seat. Nothing against you personally. We need you. So they say, hey, it's not personal, it's politics. But then when it goes and it gets personal, and they try dragging your wife, your kids, or trying to do some kind of character assassination, and which goes in beyond into the ridiculous. It's like, no, now this is getting personal. Now it's wrong. You know, you're either, and some people are out there are, hey, the ends justify the means. Any means necessary to get their end result. And that's not what I'm about. That's not what a lot of people are about. You know, the means matter. Even right now, when you're looking at talking about these recounts and vote discrepancies or something like that, which I'm getting a barrage of calls and emails on, you know, it's not about the end result. It's about the process, to make sure we have a fair, transparent process to get the correct winner, to get the correct result. But what's really, you know, upsetting about what becomes of politics and these negative attacks is, it's one thing to attack my stand or my vote on a certain issue. It's another thing when it's mischaracterized. Okay, I'll still explain. I would rather be attacked for something I did than something I didn't do, when there's a lot of lies and just blatant falsehoods that were put out there and mailed and constant in text, and saying, oh, Rep. Berman voted against this. And they'll even reference a bill number. And I'm like, wait, I didn't vote against that. Was there some unintended consequence of this bill? And I would look up a bill, and one of them saying I didn't vote to lower prescription drug costs or something. And I looked up the bill. Not only did the bill not have a vote, it never even had a hearing. It was just a flat out lie that they're throwing out there to try to sway voters. I think that's wrong. You know, in the real world, it's, you know, there's defamation, and here it's just politics. I don't think politics should be like that.
Yeah, and knowing that, as you continue to go back into Lansing and continue to try to work, the governor right now is calling on lawmakers to make some decisions regarding the increase of COVID-19 cases here in the state of Michigan. I know one of her big pushes right now seems to be for lawmakers to pass a bill mandating masks. What are your thoughts on that issue?
So, yeah, I mean, getting that, as well as trying to say that I've, you know, tried to stymie the governor and hamper her ability to unilaterally, you know, make her mandates. And absolutely I did. I mean, we have a separation of powers for a reason. You know, we have a legislature for a reason. We have lawmakers, law enforcers, and it wasn't up to her to just have unilateral power to declare whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted. And especially when a lot of that was arbitrary. When you're talking about moving forward, even after the Supreme Court struck her down, the next day, Oakland County Health Department put their own mandates in place, put their own mask mandate, put their own provisions on limiting and kept a limit on capacities of establishments. That was followed by the state health department. And a lot of people are angry that that state health department continued on when they were also named as a lawsuit in the initial litigation that led to the Supreme Court ruling. You know, with that, nothing has really changed from when, you know, whether you agree with her or not, it shouldn't have been up to her. Nothing really has changed. People know what the coronavirus is. People know how you can get it, how it spreads, what type of behaviors that you should do of physical distancing, washing your hands, being careful, wearing a mask. A lot of people want a mask mandate and half the people don't. I believe in individual responsibility. It's up to you and up to an individual to be responsible. If an establishment won't let you in without a mask, then it's your choice not to go to that establishment or put on a mask. You know what's out there. Just like it's somebody, if they don't want to be in potential contact with others, wear their mask if they think that's effective. Wash their hands, wear gloves, take appropriate safety measures for yourself. Mandating shutdowns, mandating these things, which I believe, coming from the government, has constitutional concerns. I don't think that's the appropriate response. I believe in individual rights and responsibility, but with that, you have to be mindful of others, not invade their personal space, and be a good member of society. So if it makes somebody feel better or you're going to be around people, yeah, maybe wear a mask. I don't know what the current studies, and I saw something posted of the statistics of the countries and states with mask mandates and without, and we still the same type of curvature and spikes going on there. I think you have to be foolish a little bit to think that a little cloth mask is going to protect you from a virus. Will it slow and stop the sputum and spit? Yeah, kind of like a net in catching fish. It could help. The problem is that people think that the government's there to, dictate every part of their life, and that's really not what it is. The government is there to ensure your rights, is ensure your freedom and your liberty, and you can't forget that.
Ryan Berman with us. He's the state representative for District 39, the Michigan House of Representatives, and Representative Berman, with the governor's powers being struck down by the Supreme Court, being ruled unconstitutional, and that power now also being rested within the state government, either at the level of the Health and Human Services Department and or that of the House of Representatives and the Senate and the legislature. Have there been any discussions in Lansing at the Capitol, on one side of the aisle, on both sides of the aisle, about any further actions to currently, or measures to be taken at the state level, and if any, what has been discussed?
Yeah, so what the House Republicans had went through, and they're still going through data and talking to some experts, but put together a plan that had the statewide kind of framework of, hey, how many cases per million? And I don't have it in front of me, but that was like a baseline or a threshold of what we've seen over the past few months and what we don't want to get past, based off of hospital capacity, death rate, case transmission rate, all these factors. And basically what the plan said, it was kind of like a reverse. Not when you reach a certain level do restrictions happen, but once you go under that level, that at a countywide level, and the county health department can end up loosening these type of restrictions. So whatever was in place now, let's say it was 50% capacity of an establishment. Hey, once you get under these thresholds, you can loosen it up and maybe be at 75% or 100% capacity. Then if those cases and stuff still rise, you have to go back to that baseline. So it's kind of like a reverse of kind of what you've seen. The fact of the matter is, and throughout the whole time, is Governor Whitmer never shared her data to support her decisions. She always said, hey, I have this data. The legislature doesn't have the data that I do. And I always said, one, why don't we have the data you do? And two, why aren't you sharing? And she still refuses to share that data. And that's why our COVID oversight committee has subpoenaed a lot of this in records. Even now, though, you're hearing these case spikes. Of course, cases are going up when you're testing. A lot of people are getting tested now that have to, not because they're sick, whether it's to go into school, go into their work. People are asymptomatic. The virus has already gone through our most vulnerable population, and now it's going through the rest. You're not going to get rid of the virus. People think, oh, we have another shutdown. The virus is still going to be out there. Unless we have a shutdown, and everybody shut down, and nobody can go out to contain that virus, and we shut our borders down, and nobody's ever allowed to come back into Michigan or out, that's one way to contain it. Otherwise, it's impossible. We're never going to stop the virus. Though, remember the whole thing about the shutdowns was not to overwhelm our hospital capacity? Governor Whitmer kept moving the goalposts. Oh, now it's to this. Now it's to cases. The same metrics apply. We need to worry about our hospital capacity and our death rate. Death rate has been down. If it's starting to go back again, and I saw in the news this morning, oh, the hospital capacity, hospitals are saying, oh, we're jumping up 150% from last week. Well, I know one of the hospitals had 3 patients. So that means, oh, what? They're at 4 now? 5? You can't look at the percentages. You have to look at the overall numbers. And at the end, very end of the news story, it said, oh, well, hospitalizations, capacity, that's not what we're worried about. When they spent 5 minutes talking about that's what they're worrying about. I think that's strange. You have to look into these numbers and not just be frightened with some statistics. You got to look down into the data and what are we really worried about? What is the goal? I think the goal all along was not to stop a viral spread. It was to make sure anybody that does get sick has the ability to be treated with that and isn't turned away, that we have the ability to treat everybody.
Ryan Berman with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the Michigan State Representative for District 39 and recently reelected to the position. Ryan, in your second term, what is on the top of your list to try to get accomplished?
You know, again, when we're talking about this virus, we're talking about no matter what it is, school funding, the roads, whatever it is, the top of the list in order to make these decisions, and what I said, talking about data, is transparency. The election, transparency. I'm all about government transparency. That's what I ran on 2 years ago, and that's what I continue to run on. And what my first bill that passed the House was the Legislative Open Records Act. That's still sitting in the Senate, opening up ourselves, the legislature, as well as there's companion bills with the governor's office to our Freedom of Information Act. I'm committed to transparency and making sure that citizens can see where their money is going, what their government is doing, who's being hired by our government, what they're being paid. That's the most important part, what the data, what the numbers are for journalists such as yourself, reporters, being able to get access to information without huge, high monetary barriers for that information. A lot of stuff should just be posted online for everybody to be able to view. So number one is to continue that and to continue my bills. I have another one in the Senate that's going to be voted on the Senate shortly, House Bill 5015, that posts everybody that works for the state government offices, what their position is and how much they're paid. I'm looking forward to that getting passed and continuing with the courts and even local government here, that everybody has open access to government information.
And, a lot of people, I don't think that they realize, first, when you talked about the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, that is not just for reporters. It's not just for attorneys. It's actually for everyone. And that information is our information. As a citizen, as a taxpayer, that is our information. But one of the things some governments will do is when you put in a FOIA, they will say, okay, we'll release that information. And then I think I got one response to a FOIA maybe in the city of Detroit, and it was going to be like, $3,472. They just make it a crazy amount of money because they know that you're not going to spend the money in order to pay to get that information. And that is even more important for private individuals as well that do not have an organization or a business behind them that could possibly pony up the money for that FOIA. So just to let everyone know that that is your information. It's not necessarily the government's information. So, and with that, Ryan, knowing that going forward, boy, what was it like campaigning during this time versus your first election? Because how were you even able to go door to door in the middle of the COVID crisis?
Yeah, a few observations. One is door to door is always the best, way to introduce yourself to someone, to talk to someone, get in front of them, to let them know who you are, what you're about, and more importantly, what they're about, what they're thinking, their thoughts, and what's important to them. So when I ran in 2018, I went door to door from in the winter, like late January, early February, all the way throughout. I didn't miss a day. It was kind of like a mission of mine, and getting into a routine. But I was only able, I wanted to make sure people were home, people to talk to. I didn't want to just get an empty door. The whole point of doing doors is to talk to people. And so you have a window, maybe 5 to 8 p.m., 5 to 9 during the summer, 5 to 10 when the sun goes down. You only have a few hours, and me, I like to talk to people, and sometimes you spend a half hour, maybe even an hour at one house. It didn't get through a lot necessarily, but this time in a pandemic, how would that work? And it worked, and it was kind of surprising. But before I went out, I sent out a mailer and said, hey, I'm going to continue doing doors. Oh, and last year, even out of election year, I did doors to talk to constituents to see what their concerns are, how they think I'm doing in Lansing, what they want to see, what are their priorities. So I'm still going on the off years. I love meeting people, love talking to people, and seeing what's their concerns. So this year, and people are saying, hey, you can't do it. And I've just figured, well, all right, why? Let's figure it out. Why not? I sent out a mailer and said, listen, I'm going to come to your door. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my flyer with my contact information on your door. I'll knock or ring the doorbell. Then I'm going to stand back, 6-10 feet, physically safe distance. If you feel comfortable answering your door, love to talk to you. If you don't, no worries. Don't answer your door. Shush me away. I got plenty of that outside of a pandemic, people slamming doors in my face. I get it. But if you're not comfortable, there's no pressure. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I have a mask with me. I have precautions, whatever's most comfortable for them. And so I traveled, I went out, and I did it, and I had an overwhelmingly great response. And what was even better is that people were home, right? I didn't have to go through just 5 to 8. During the middle of the day, people are home. They're working from home. Yeah, a lot of people, majority of time, they're on a conference call. People were liked that I was coming to their door. People, trapped there with their kids, and they didn't have much interaction. They liked to see somebody, a friendly face at their door, and they would talk, and they took advantage of it. I had people who were total proponents and yelling at me about Governor Whitmer and that I was trying to stop her, and they loved the mask mandates. Yet they kept coming closer to me and closer to me, and I would have to back up away from them. It was kind of funny, but people liked that interaction. They still do. Some do, some don't. But I got the credit for coming there, going at their door, even if they shushed me away. But it was the best way, and it's still the best way to introduce myself, let them know the truths out there about me, my positions, and really what concerns them.
Ryan Berman with us. We so appreciate your time. Congratulations on your re-election, and we hope to have you back on the show again. So we know you're busy and you have a crazy schedule, but we appreciate the time. Ryan Berman with us here on the Oakland County Megacast.